In the following interview, I sit down with Stu Shea, President, Chairman, and CEO of Peraton. Stu previously served as Chief Operating Officer for SAIC, and he was the principal architect in the creation of Leidos, where he then served as President and COO. Stu also founded the United States Geospatial Intelligence Foundation, and he's a 6-time Wash100 Award winner. If you enjoy this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Also, we want to hear from you. Do you have a question for GovCon's leaders? If so, please drop a comment below or email studio@executivemosaic.com. Hello, and welcome to Executive Mosaic's video interview series. I'm Summer Mayat, and here to speak with me today is Stu Shea, President, Chairman, and CEO of Peraton. Stu, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, absolutely, Summer. Looking forward to it.
So, Stu, can you talk about some of the changes you've seen in the national security landscape in recent years, especially through the lens of the pandemic and the ongoing conflict in Ukraine? How are you seeing industry respond?
It's a great question. I mean, I would see the two very different between the pandemic and the war in Ukraine. When you think about the pandemic, this is something that we've been pushing at Periton for quite a number of years, and that is this more expansive view of what national security is all about. It deals not only with defense and intelligence, but also financial stability, economics, health, pandemics, et cetera. And what we see is the intricacies and the interconnectivity of all of those elements of our national security infrastructure. A supply chain issue has implications to our defense posture and our defense systems. The economics of the environment or the lack of travel have people kind of covered in to their own world. And I think as a result of all of this, we realize that this world is really interconnected, and therefore our national security is also really interconnected. So I see that as a really interesting shift that we've been predicting for quite a number of years. With regard to the war in Ukraine, unlike other wars where we are actively involved in protecting democracy around the world or serving one of the NATO nations or others, in this case, it's a little hard for us to participate fully because of the nature of the opposing force with Russia, with potentially China's involvement and others. And so I see us being a little bit on the outside. You do see certain individuals stepping in. What Elon Musk did with Starlink is phenomenal. He jumped right in and said, I'm going to provide internet service to people instantaneously. And that is very different from the way that we engage in most activities. Back in the Gulf War a number of years ago, the creation of the Mrap vehicles was another example where Secretary Gates came in and said, we need to have these to protect our soldiers. And so I see us kind of sitting, waiting on the outside, hoping not to get fully in, but still providing great intelligence and support to our NATO allies. And I see what, probably the biggest thing is the world has come to the aid of the Ukrainian people and believe that that is a really reprehensible thing that the Russians have done in terms of their encroachment in Ukrainian borders.
And so as industry is responding to these and other major changes, what do you think is separating the good government contractors from the great ones?
Wow. Being good or great or being bad or really bad is really in the eyes of the witness or beholder. And I look at it very simply as great companies are made up of great people and great solutions. And great people create great systems and great support for our nation's warfighter, for our clandestine service, for public servants, whatever that is, and really help our families. I think Periton is a great company. I think there are many great companies. I think there are many companies that are good companies. But the people that really attract the best talent and deliver the best systems and what we call missions of consequence, I think are the companies that people would define in arrears as great.
That's a good point. And I want to ask you, what is your strategy for attracting and also retaining top-level talent, especially in today's talent shortage?
Also a great question. We're in a talent war right now, and my belief is that it's a seller's market, right? It's not a buyer's market. And so employees have lots of choices. And where are they going to want to go? They're going to want to go to great companies. They're going to go to a place where the company is doing something that is of significance. That's something that has a consequence, where they can get emotionally attached to it. You want to be able to give them a safe place to work. And that's safe from environmental hazards, safe from threats, safe from retaliation, safe from all elements of the daily social lives that we deal with. You want to pay them fair compensation. You want to give them benefits that are attractive to them. You want to give them a place where they can work in an environment where they get to challenge themselves, they have mobility, they have the agility to move and take on new challenges, accepting failure as a kind of a step in that process. That's hard to do in this market unless you can hit on all cylinders. You have to be able to create a place that's fun, attractive, intellectual stimulating, well compensated, fair, and safe to work at. And I think we've done that. We did that as part of our employee value proposition many years ago, but I think others do it as well. There's a lot of companies that seem like they're great because they have foosball tables and lounge chairs. Great, but that doesn't mean they're doing anything of any importance. So you need to have that motivation. When you get motivated, when you get emotionally charged, like rooting for a football team, when you get really emotional about it, that is a good place to work. But you also have to feel like it's fun to go every day. And so that's how I think I would define an attractive employee value proposition, which then ties to your first question is, what does that make it a great company?
And I want to take a closer look inside Peraton. You've spoken before about how Periton is built on a mosaic of different elements, and you've certainly been instrumental in bringing those elements together cohesively. Can you tell us about the status of the integration of Periton's recent acquisitions, like Northrop Grumman's IT business and Perspecta, and what benefits are you seeing come out of that?
Yeah, it's an interesting process. I've done a lot of acquisitions, a lot of divestitures, and in that process, a lot of companies always focus on the things, right? They focus on the systems, the tools, the processes, the policies, and that's not the right way to bring together. In our case, we had 4 concurrent organizations: Heritage Peraton, Heritage Northrop, Heritage Perspecta, Heritage Vion, and then the divestiture of Arcfield at the exact same time. So what we did was we focused on the emotional part, the missions of consequence, the things that are important to everybody, the culture of the company, the representation of a diverse set of employees, how we wanted to take care of people during COVID. All of that became a glue that held the fabric of the company together. So then when we went to do all the hard work and move everybody's cheese and change their computing systems or their processes or the policies, it was a little bit more amenable to people. We also moved with a great degree of speed in our integration. Most companies would take 18 months to integrate what we've done in 7. And so we are done with the integration with a few minor elements. I think we had 500,000 different items in our integrated master schedule. Of those 500,000, there's probably 100 that are left. And some of them are substantive, moving people out of one building into another building. But there are things that we took with great speed because we felt as soon as we could get people locked down and refocused on doing the great missions that we support, it would be a more easy integration of the very disparate backgrounds of the people. We also focused on what was common in the people as opposed to their differences. I always felt like, whether you're supporting the Postal Service or you're supporting the CIA or you're supporting the U.S. Navy, all of those organizations have a mission, and those missions matter. And so if we could get people to realize that the missions of all of those customers are important, they're of consequence, then it would make for a better integration. And we also mixed up the team. We moved people around that had different leaders. We blended the families, and that gave a sense of one that I think was important for us. So we're ostensibly done in our integration.
Well, congratulations. And Stu, I'm curious, do you anticipate further consolidation within the national security market?
I've been doing this 40 years, and there is no shortage of acquisitions. There's no shortage of divestitures. There's no shortage of renaming of companies. There's no shortage of changes in focus in companies. I don't think it's ever going to end, because I don't think it's something that happens and then it doesn't happen. It's a natural part of the process. Small companies grow into bigger companies. Bigger companies separate themselves into smaller companies. People leave bigger companies and start their own company, and they create their own company, and then they grow, and then they're acquired, and then they leave and they start their own company. This is the evolution of business. So I don't believe that the market dynamics are going to change. Now, there is certainly concerns that you have to make sure that you focus on in terms of doing it right according to antitrust rules and Department of Justice. That's fine. But the government is also changing the competitive landscape. The U.S. government owns the complete responsibility for how they contract with industry. And the reality is some of their old ways of doing business, where they were the integrator, no longer works. They need big integrators to be able to bring together the hundreds of small companies that might provide a solution to them. So we act as a prime to many small businesses. We have a really aggressive small business portfolio, but we do that because we have the capacity to integrate. There are other companies like us that do that as well. I think that's important, but at some point, the focus of the company gets too diffuse. There's a line of business that doesn't make sense. So what do? You sell it off to somebody else who now creates a company, who then 5 years later may be acquired. So it's just a natural evolution that I think is going to continue. I think it's encouraging. I think the U.S. government controls most of our own destiny. And then we all respond to it.
So as you mentioned, within this ever-changing market, how do you set your priorities? What are the key factors that go into your bidding and acquisition decisions?
Yeah, so any company will do what they do best, right? So they want to do things that make the most sense, that are aligned both with their priorities, and then they have to make an investment to be able to pursue that. For us, we focus on what we call next generation national security. We want to focus on missions of consequence, things that matter to people. We want to focus on the stuff that's hard to do. We don't want to be a commodity business. We want to be a business that focuses on the toughest problems. So as you begin to think about the bigger markets, what we do is we take that big market and we skinny it down to the things that are resilient, that are difficult, that require an element of mission understanding, historical, understanding of a mission of a customer, are often differentiated by technology. So that's where we're going to focus. So you take any market, cyber, we like to focus on the offensive part of cyber, not the defensive. Space, we focus on the core elements of protection of our space systems, not the more commodity parts of the space systems. And by doing that, we're able to focus on something that is resilient between administrations, resilient in terms of history, because it's important stuff that has to be done, and it has a higher barrier to entry. When we do that, as long as we have the skills and the chops to do it, and the security clearances and the investment portfolio, then we are in a smaller group of competitors that is highly differentiated. And so we'll continue to do that in each of our markets.
And Stu, you've been in the government contracting world for decades, and you've been at the top of some of the industry's biggest players. What advice do you have for executives looking to advance their careers? What does it take to get to where you are?
Yeah, I would say don't paint within the lines. I believe you have to have your own credo, your own code of conduct, your own North Star, right? When you have that navigation ability, I think you have to live by that set of values. I think it has to be core to who you are. You have to be consistent in your application of those processes. And I think a lot of what leadership is all about is building trust. I think trust is the currency of leadership. So you build it, don't squander it. You have to cherish that trust, and then you have to extend it to the people that work with you. I've said before, be careful of the people that you step over in your career because they could be your boss someday. I think it's really important that you just build a network of trust and honesty and transparency and partnership and not get into hatred or competition that goes wrong. I have great friends in this market, and they are great competitors. But I'm always respectful of them, and I hope that they're always respectful of me. I think when you have that respect and that trust, then, we will be able to battle each other and still be friends and work together, right? And so it's often called competimates. I think that's important. And so I think executives need to build that fabric of who they are and make sure that they live it every single day.
Well, Stu, thank you so much for your insights and for all the work you do at Peraton.
Thank you, Summer. Appreciate the time.